Okay, hi guys. Sorry I haven't been making videos. Just, got life going on. But I decided to give myself a goal for getting hobby stuff done. So I submitted a game to a convention coming up in Port Clinton, Ohio, Hold the Line, this weekend of November 14th and 15th. I thought about submitting my Setsora game that I've played on the channel, but I'm just need to. I kind of need a break from that scenario, and plus, now that I have the fortress, I can do Belgrade. It's not a perfect fit. The fortress I have is like a 16th century artillery fort, so it's not quite, what Belgrade looked like in the beginning of the 16th century, but I think it'll be okay. And I am going to see if my dad can print me a different set of castle walls that's more fitting, but if not, it's okay if I can't get it in time. I think the fort I built is big enough, and if you haven't seen that, I've made a couple videos showing that. But so what do I have to do? So mostly I need to work on the defenders of Belgrade. I just finally finished this unit. It's been sitting on my bench. These are the Balkan Voynuks from Khorasan. They're for the Ottomans to represent like European Spahi, I guess, or European levies, but I'm going to use them, for the Hungarian defenders, like just to have a kind of different looking type of foot knight, with a little bit more of a Balkan look to them. I don't know if they would have worn this armor in 1521, but yeah, I don't know. It looks cool, and to be honest, it's not that different than other styles of like especially Ottoman armor. Only thing is, it's been tricky to get the shields on. I just finished the basing, so just got to get this guy a shield and paint this guy's shield. And rules wise, I might, since these guys are shielded, I don't know, I might give them like a more, you know, stronger bonus or something. I don't know. And then I've shown these, but I also painted these billmen. I think these are from the War of the Roses range, but just to have as another Western European type foot knight or man-at-arms kind of thing for 1520, because I know the depictions like of Mohacs from 1526, you see a lot of guys, in this kind of style. And then, of course, I have my pikemen, my Italian Wars era pikemen that I can use. I've got, how many pike blocks do I have? So I painted those on the channel before, or shown them. So I've got, let's see, I think I've got 3 pike blocks, which should be enough. I mean, it is a siege scenario, so, it's not going to be like a big field battle. But I've got that. And then for the Ottomans, I've got pretty much everything I need. I do need to paint up these Azab archers, because in the early 16th century, they would have still been fielding these guys. And I was thinking about not taking my Ottoman Sekban arquebusiers, so like not the Janissaries, but the kind of like levied, mercenary arquebusiers. But I did read, I was reading a book, The Akkuyunlu by John Woods, interesting book, but did talk about the Battle of Bashkent. This is between the Ottomans and the Akkuyunlu empire that ruled Iran in the late 15th century, and it did say the Ottomans fielded a lot of arquebuses, or they had arquebusiers, and that was in the 1470s under Mehmed the Conqueror, or Fatih Sultan Mehmed. So I might take some of those arquebusiers also just to fill the table out a little bit more. I feel like that's pretty important at these kind of games, just to make sure there's kind of enough going on for people to look at and play with. So I probably take them because I do have a lot of those. And I might bring all of my Ottoman stuff just to have a mechanic where, like maybe the Ottomans can bring more onto the field to represent that they have like overwhelming numbers. But I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Where the Ottoman player could potentially replace casualties, but I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Now I won't be now when I do the scenario. It's not going to be connected to the campaign I've been doing on the channel. This is just going to be a kind of a more clean slate version of the scenario where we have the Ottoman main force is at Sabach. The Ottoman player will have to roll until basically Sabach falls. I may make that an opposed roll for the Hungarian player, where like I just thought of that. I'll have to think about that. Make an opposed roll for the Hungarian player, so like they're kind of playing that that Sabach is being defended still, even though it had a pretty small what do you call it, a garrison. Belgrade did too, but so, and then other stuff to paint. I've got a lot of Timurids I assembled and Tatars. Now, I don't know if I'll bring all the Tatars with me. Not sure yet. And then in terms of painting, I do have these guys. These are Old Glory 15s. These are more like 18th century Ottoman arquebusiers, but I might paint up a complement of these guys for the Belgrade game, because they do look, I think they look a little bit better, like miniature-wise, than the Fire and Sword ones, to be honest. Plus, it would help me paint these, get these painted up, and have more stuff for my collection. As far as I'm concerned, you can never have too many Ottomans. The other thing I have to paint for this is these are some of the Knights of Malta, or I guess Hospitallers, so they would have been on roads. They're in full plate. I think this is more for like mid-16th century, but I'll bring them to have as Belgrade defenders. They're all in plate armor, so I feel like this should be pretty quick to paint up. I don't know how many are in this pack, but I feel like I could get like a couple units out of this. So I'll have these guys, and then I did buy from Old Glory 15s the Balkan. What do they call these guys? Those are Tatars. Stratiots. Yeah, these guys with the light, kind of javelin. I'll try to paint these. I don't want to get too ambitious because I've got, like a few weeks until the convention, so I don't want to overburden myself and then get burned out. But I feel like what I've got to paint for both sides at this point is pretty manageable. It's, helpful that I have like a big existing Ottoman collection, and I do have a big, well, not big, but I have enough, I think, Europeans, and, the defenders are going to be outnumbered anyway, so, that's just something the defending player will have to deal with. Now, the other thing is victory conditions. So, in my opinion, as a historian, I don't know if, with the way the siege actually occurred, there could have been a way for the Hungarians, the garrison at Belgrade, to hold out, because what happened is the king, Louis II, or Lajos II, tried to mobilize the nobility in Hungary. That doesn't happen, so there's no Hungarian army that relieved the fortress. The only thing I could think of is if somehow the siege at Sabach had dragged on, you have Piri Mehmed Pasha, who goes to Belgrade on his own. He defies the Sultan, and and he goes to Belgrade without siege equipment, without any heavy guns. So he doesn't have any of the artillery pieces there, which that could, in this scenario, affect the Ottoman player's progress, because if they don't have any artillery, you can't. The way I've drawn up the sea, well, the way one of my subscribers, Telemachus, wrote up some really good siege rules. You can mine, but then the walls can get hit by artillery fire. So if they don't have siege equipment, and they don't really have, I would think they probably didn't have enough men to do like mining, because if the main force is at Sabach, now I don't know this isn't in like any of the chronicles as far as I can tell, because it's pretty granular detail, but if the main force was at Sabach, I would bet that most of the engineers were with the Sultan and the other vizier, whose name escapes me at the moment, there. Now, the Grand Vizier may have had engineers. It's not really clear. These chronicles, don't get that detailed, unfortunately. But but the point is, I think if the siege at Sabach had held out, had dragged on, I feel like eventually the Grand Vizier would have had to have been recalled to assist the main army at Sabach. They would have taken Sabach. Maybe they would have gone on to Belgrade after that. It's not really clear. It's just what if. But getting back to why this is relevant is the siege of the victory conditions for the siege. So I think the game slot runs about 4 hours. I think what I'll do is I'll just say, if a certain amount of the fortress walls are still intact by maybe, let's say, turn 6 or 7, we could say it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory for the defenders, or they've been able to hold out long enough that the Ottomans have to withdraw. Obviously, when we're playing a game like this, the turns are kind of compressing, days or weeks in terms of a siege into one turn. So that's one thing. But if you guys have any suggestions as to victory conditions, let me know. But I think maybe I'll just make a call as a ref at the end of the time allotted. I'll just kind of make a determination based on like casualties, and kind of just make a ruling based on that. Whoa, sorry about that. Talking with my hands too much. So that's what I'm thinking about. Obviously, the victory conditions for the Ottomans are a little more clear cut if they can break through the fortress walls and they, massacre all the defenders. That's like a victory. Obviously, but when I played, I think when I played out the Sabach siege as a kind of like mini siege scenario or smaller scale, I was pretty surprised at how well the defenders were able to resist the Ottoman advance with artillery and musket fire. Now we'll see if that happens in this scenario. Obviously, the Ottomans are going to there's going to be more on the table in terms of figures, number of units, and all that. So that's what I'm thinking about. But I think this will be good. This will give me something to work on, and like I said, I'm just going to try to get as much done as I can before the convention, and see what that kind of gets me. But like I said, I've got a lot already, so that definitely helps. Helps lighten the load of painting. But I think this will be good. The other thing I want to do is probably try to get some kind of poster made, explaining the battle and a little bit about, do some maps and stuff. Thankfully, I think it's in that Gabor Agostan book I've shown on the channel many times. I think he's got some maps of the campaign But if not, I could probably, make some in with like Google Earth or something, or just reproduce like my hand-drawn maps, which don't look as nice as with a computer, but I think they're, I don't know, maybe a little more charming, I hope. So that's what I've got. And then in terms of like the longer term project, so Tamerlane's army, still gonna keep working on that. I've just been in a painting funk, but that's kind of gonna be more longer range goal, I think, just because I want to make the Timurid army like really big, to eventually do the Battle of Ankara. If I can get stuff painted, I may try to go to Historicon in the upcoming summer, but it depends what I'm doing, in terms of if I have to go, go travel for research or stuff like that. But that would be fun to get to go to Historicon. And, if I can't do the Battle of Ankara at Historicon, I may just, bring Siege of Belgrade and do that. Or something like that. Or if I got really ambitious, I could do the Battle of Mohacs. I would have to get some knights for that, some mounted knights like gendarmes and stuff, but I feel like that would not be terribly burdensome to paint. I would have to get some more pike blocks, but those Blue Moon Italian Wars pikemen and lanzknechts, those paint up really quickly, so I could probably bang out more pike blocks for Mohacs. Anyway, kind of getting a little ahead of myself here, but I like to have projects that, I can kind of shift into different things. So, where instead of going from 0 to 100, with these battles I'm doing, it's more like going from like kind of 50 or 75% to 100%, in terms of what I need to paint, just adding some elements to make it fit the particular, battle, etc. Anyway, that's what I've got. This is kind of a longer one, but I haven't posted in a while, so maybe you guys find it interesting. Sorry I haven't been watching people's videos. Like I said, I've just had a lot of stuff going on in real life, so been kind of checked out of hobby stuff. But I'm hoping that this having this goal of going to this local convention will kind of give me a little bit of needed motivation, and keep you guys posted. Thanks for watching. Talk to you in the next video.